Thank you. Good morning, everybody. This is the September general membership meeting for the Seattle-King County Coalition on Homelessness. And we are really glad you're here. We've missed you. We did not hold our August general membership meeting. We were doing a lot of work around Project Cool, getting ready for the general election, looking at Seattle housing levy, thinking about trainings and budget season, all of which we're probably going to touch on in one way or another in today's agenda today. So per usual, this is going to be recorded. The lovely Tim Marshall is going to take amazing notes and write up a lovely blog, and we'll have everything on our YouTube and on our website, usually within a couple days to a week. So you can reference it, invite any colleagues that weren't able to make it today to this. We are checking the chat regularly. Please introduce yourselves in the chat. You can change your Zoom name in your little box with the little ellipses up in the top corner there. We love to see names. We love to see pronouns. We love to see agencies. You will, if you stay on mute, you will not be included in the recording. So you can have your face and you can just put everything in the chat. You will only be included in the recording if you come off mute. And I'm hearing something, so I'm going to just make sure we got everybody on mute. Okay, great. Thank you for that. So we have a lot to cover today. There's a lot happening. For anybody that's new to the coalition, and I know one person is here as a new community member, and we love that. These are open public meetings, and we encourage everyone to be here. We are a nonprofit. We do a lot of policy and advocacy, and we are really looking to make sound investments that are and invest in good policy around homelessness and housing. And we're paying attention to policies that are not so great, which is happening a lot in our community right now, particularly in Burien. So we hold trainings, we hold membership meetings. We really look to support the folks that are doing this amazing essential work every day. And so that is why the coalition exists, is to just keep improving these systems and making sure that the folks doing this work are informed, are part of a collective, powerful voice as we go to make those transformative systemic changes. Whew, maybe I did not have enough coffee this morning, but I'll get there. So we are going to introduce you to our newest staff member, Hali Willis. Some of you may have already been introduced to her because we, basically threw her into the deep end, and she's been out there doing amazing work, but she's going to have a moment to talk a little bit about who she is and how she comes into this work. We are going to talk a little bit about budget and advocacy, because that's the thing that's coming up for us this fall is budget advocacy. But this is really just how to get comfortable being an advocate for the things that we're passionate about and the changes that we want to see made, and how to be effective at it, and how when we do this together, we can do and have made amazing changes that really improve the lives of you all doing this work and people that are experiencing housing instability. We've got some coalition announcements. We are gonna have a special guest join us, Alexis Mercedes Rink from the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, towards the end of this meeting. And we're gonna shower her with some love today. And then before I turn it over so we can really introduce you to Hali and go over our mission, vision, and values, I just want to remind folks that we are having our annual lawn bowling fundraiser and party this Saturday at the Jefferson Park Lawn Bowling Club on Beacon Hill. It's Saturday, that's the 23rd, from 4 to 7. It is a super fun time. We will be throwing the link in if you want to get your tickets and come and celebrate with us, be in community, have good food, and bowl, and then go ahead and support the work that we're all doing amazingly together. So I'm going to work on dropping that that link into the chat, and I'm going to have Hali read our mission, vision, and value statement.
Thanks, Jody. Our mission is to mobilize community to challenge systemic causes of homelessness and advocate for housing justice. Our vision is a region that acts on a shared sense of responsibility to ensure that everyone has a home. And our values are equity, justice, and collective action.
Thanks, Hali. We appreciate it. And I was actually responding to something else while I was not dropping something into the chat. So,
okay, step in
take
here.
It away, Allison.
You are problem solving behind the scenes. Thank you so much, Jody, and good morning, everyone. We told Hali we were going to invite her to read the mission, vision, and value statements. As many of you know, we open every meeting that way just to ground ourselves in that shared mission, vision, and values, which we think about a lot. And of course, we did not have a membership meeting in August. So that's why I kind of forgot that you all haven't had a chance to meet Hali yet. So we're delighted to welcome Hali Willis to the Coalition on Homelessness Small and Mighty staff team. Feels like she's been here for a long time, but she's really only been here a little over a month. And I'm going to let her introduce herself to you in a minute. I think most of you know this, but in case you missed it, our wonderful staff member, Sarah Robbins, left at the end of July. And, you know, she's not really gone. She's doing other great work in our community. And we have a new community policy manager. As many of you who've had the pleasure of interacting with Hali know, she brings a lot of relevant experience and knowledge to this work, which you'll hear about in a moment. And also she has things to learn, as we all do. So she's going to be a great resource, ally, partner, and leader in this work. And I know that you will warmly welcome her and share your information, ideas, knowledge, insight, and questions with her. And with that, I'll just ask Hali to tell you a little bit about herself.
Good morning, everyone. I'll be brief since we've got lots to do today, but my name is Hali Willis. I use she, her pronouns. I grew up in Seattle, and I come to you most recently from working for a coalition of local governments in King County. So I have a good amount of experience with the with local government and how they work. And I am a little bit newer to this universe of homelessness advocacy, but I'm very, very excited to just jump right in, as Allison said, and be part of this good fight for housing justice for everyone. So thank you. I'm very happy to be here. And I'm going to kick us off with a little poll in advance of our little training on budget advocacy today.
And the purpose of this poll obviously is just to give all of us a little bit of a sense as we talk about advocacy, about whether or not folks have participated in one particular form of advocacy, which is giving public comment at a public meeting. City council could be any city that you live in. County council could be any county that you live in. We know lots of folks may work here in Seattle and King County, but live elsewhere. And this really is applicable for every person and every location. Since I'm not as familiar with these polls, I don't know, can this keep running as we're talking?
I think we've got some really good responses, so I'm going to go ahead and end it, and we will share the results in just a moment.
Excellent. I think I can close it without messing things up. Okay, great. So we're going to talk about advocacy. I like to remind everyone of a definition that you may be very familiar with that comes from the wonderful Nancy Amadei, who partnered with us for many years to teach Homelessness Advocacy 101 workshops and sometimes joins these calls. And that is that advocacy just means speaking up. It really is true, especially if you think about speaking up as being a cover term and not necessarily literally using your voice. I like to think of it also as something that we do whether or not our job includes that as part of the work. And that's really because the reason that you're all doing this work is probably related to your desire to see things be vastly different in the future than they are right now. I don't think anybody who's working in housing and homelessness right now thinks that things are just peachy. And change really does take concerted effort over time. And that's the other piece of what advocacy is. It isn't just a one-off thing. I realize there are folks here who are really experienced, might be what you consider to be old hands at doing this. So we invite you to share your experiences and tips and learnings with all of us in the chat. And I realize there are some folks who might be here today who are kind of saying quietly to themselves, I think I'm just going to go get another cup of coffee right now because this is not my bag. I am not comfortable speaking in public. I don't really want to be part of this. And I hear you, but I have news for you. We are the ones that we are waiting for. So our goal here today, as always at the Coalition, is to make it relatively easy to demystify certain parts of the process. Hali has an awesome kind of nuts and bolts of how to do certain things that can be technical or intimidating. And we've got another tool that we want to invite you to use about this fall's City Council at the City of Seattle and County Council at King County Budget Advocacy. By way of, just sort of wrapping up this introduction, I want to invite you to think about some of the things that are live issues in our community right now or in the recent past that might be reasons why you, your coworkers, the people who serve on your organization's board, your family members, and the people you work with and serve might not only want to speak up, but might actually have to speak up. So just 2 days ago, the Seattle City Council, despite a 4-month delay caused by quite a lot of excellent advocacy and organizing, passed a law adding the state penalties to criminalize people who use certain controlled substances in public spaces, and to give the Seattle City Attorney the power to prosecute people for those quote unquote crimes. We were part of an amazing group of organizations that pulled together to do a teach-in. Many of you were part of it. I'm not going to take the time right now to talk about the issue, but that's a pretty significant change in the law that is squarely aimed at our folks, at people who are experiencing homelessness, who don't have a home in which they may use substances, and who are going to be using in public. Obviously, a lot more to be said about that issue, but the public outcry and the public comments have been an incredibly important part of the dialogue around that issue, and will continue to be incredibly important as that law goes into effect. Also on Monday night, the City Council in Burien took all but the final step in passing an ordinance that bans people from quote unquote camping, i.e. being too poor to have a home, in public spaces in Burien where that's not already banned. Again, people calling, writing, showing up at City Council has been an incredibly important part of the process and will continue to be so. And then the last example, as I think many of you know, that I wanted to share with you is our collective, so the coalition has been involved in both those issues in Seattle and in Burien, and many of you have been as well, and we thank you. We don't always win, but the point about being an advocate is that you actually keep doing it for the long haul and learn along the way. So the other issue that we wanted to flag for you is the work that we all have done and continue to have to do to ensure that public entities like the city and the county fund contracts that actually cover the cost of doing the work. And that includes the increased cost of running an organization, including paying workers. And we passed legislation at the City of Seattle to adjust human services contracts to keep up with inflation. And in fact, that is actually on the agenda again this fall. So while we don't fully have our advocacy messaging for this fall baked, and I'll tell you why in 1 second, the purpose of our session here this morning today is to make sure everyone, experienced folks, somewhat interested folks, and people who might be just ready to say, not me, have the basics that you need to speak up, because that is actually the only way that we are going to make progress. So as I think you guys know, and as Hali is going to share in her portion of this presentation, we have a process that means that the executive, in the city's case, the mayor, in the county's case, the county executive, takes the first crack at designing a budget. And then it gets sent, which is about to happen next week and the week after, to the councils for their involvement. And the councils actually have the final say, but they have almost no time in which to make changes. And so it's very, very significant what gets put into the original package, because it's a very complex process to understand the budget and to figure out where it might be possible to shift money around. And of course, we all are familiar with the fact that there is an underlying issue, which is that we do not actually have progressive, equitable sources of revenue at the city, the county, or the state. We have the most regressive tax system, the most upside down tax system in Washington state of all 50 states. And there are some structural problems. Both the city and the county absolutely need, with limited tools, to figure out how to make use of the funds they currently have. And those funds are arguably not enough or need to be redistributed to do what we need done. So there are a lot of layers to this. Not here to actually preach, although I appreciate the comments in the chat here, but that's all the context in which we're operating. That said, we collectively, housing and homeless and human services providers, advocates, the folks we work with, and allied organizations, have actually had a tremendous influence on our city and county budgets. Not as much as we might like, but nevertheless, we have had a significant influence over the years, and we intend to continue that. Some of you were part of our rally for human services and dignity last year, and we are going to be fighting this year again for contracts that meet inflation or exceed it, for contracts that better allow wages to rise as they must, because they've been suppressed and inadequate for years, and to make sure that we do not lose shelter capacity in our system. Do we need more? Hell yes, we do. Until we see what the mayor's budget and the county exec's budgets contain within them, we can't fully articulate what our priorities are going to be. But I want to remind you that last year, what happened was the mayor's budget came out, and Mayor Harrell had chosen not to follow the law that he actually voted for when he was a council member to ensure that human services contracts keep up with inflation. The next morning, at the very first budget committee meeting, We had a lineup of people telling city council members, some of whom didn't actually even know that this was not in the budget, that you need to prioritize fixing this in your work, council members. And they did. So I hope that that's not the situation we're in this year. I think it won't be, but we have 300 shelter beds that are at risk of funding cliff. We are not going to allow those shelters to close. We're not going to allow those people to be put back on the street. And we are absolutely going to insist that there is additional resource at the city and the county. So that's kind of, the basic landscape. I'm going to pause there for a minute, check out the chat. Okay, can I just sort of hear from people, like, as we go along, maybe I'll invite you to ask any questions that you have about the process, because what we're launching right now is going to be live through the week of American Thanksgiving. So we have about 10 weeks ahead of us of advocacy. And you will, I hope, if you're signed up on our email list, you will get action alerts from us. You will get invitations to drop-in sessions to craft your public comment, which we're going to talk about in a second here. But let's just take a sec and talk about, really, I think of this as the who, what, where, when, and how of speaking up. Who, I think we've kind of covered. Guess what? It's all of us. Just as, one exercise regimen might not be the right one for everybody, the answer with advocacy is, pick what works for you. So if you are really shy about speaking in public, well, you might stretch yourself and you might go with a colleague or a friend to counsel. You might see Tim or Jody or Hallie or Rachel or me there, and we will gladly help give you moral support and do whatever is useful to help you get your energy focused in the right direction. But you might just say, nope, I can't do that. That my job and family responsibilities don't give me the time to do it. I'm just going to write an email. Great. I'm just going to call my council members' offices. Great. I'm going to show up at the coffee hour that my council member is holding in my district. Great. I think the point is you have to do something. So our goal is to give you a variety of options and tools. And as I said, demystify and de-intimidate and encourage you warmly. So that brings us to the why. The why is because you have information that the decision makers, the elected officials, whether you voted for them or not, need to do their jobs. You know what it's like to talk to someone who spent the night outside and who is being told that they have to move from the location where they have been staying, which happens to be close to the place where they're getting healthcare services. The city council members and the county council members do not know what that is like. And part of why you are a very special part of this process is that you and only you and your coworkers can tell them. It's a truth that most people who hold elected office, whether it's at the local, state, or federal level, most don't come from an experience of poverty. Most of them are still white. Most of them are still male. But also, most of them have never worked in direct human services. And it's really part of our job to educate them and make sure that they're also understanding, when we say a budget is a moral document, that there are real world effects immediately on real people. If 300 shelter beds are defunded, that's 300 people who no longer have a safe place to stay. That's also staff at those agencies who no longer have jobs. That is the opposite direction of where this community says it wants to go, and we're not going to allow it to happen. But you understand, I mean, here's one example. I went and visited the Women's Referral Center. Thank you very much to the folks at Angeline's YWCA, CCS, who operate the Women's Referral Center, which, by the way, was once on the chopping block to be defunded at the City of Seattle, and we saved it. And when I went to visit, it was the time when women were being referred to shelters spread out. This was pre-COVID, all around the city. And over the loudspeaker, the announcement came, wheelchairs and walkers to the front of the line. If you've heard that, you will never forget it. If you bring that into the council chambers, or you put it into your personalized email, you are bringing information to the budget making process that is necessary and that won't be heard otherwise. We don't have a whole bunch of highly paid lobbyists in three-piece suits going to City Hall. We have ourselves. So that's the who, but I'm going to insert another little piece. Who else? So, you know, we have 37 people on the call today. Great. But we know that, you know, there are hundreds more folks who are the people we are speaking to with this training. And those folks include the people who receive services, who have personal experience of homelessness, whether they are now housed or not, people who may be your colleagues. And one of the things that we want to invite you to think about through the course of this morning is, how can you meaningfully and respectfully involve folks for whom this system is really inaccessible to share their insight and perspective? People have done all kinds of interesting things, interviewing guests at their service site and reading what they've said to council in chambers. People have had folks fill out postcards. There are a lot of creative ways that people can do it, and you can also invite people to accompany you in person to City Hall. We are very happy to support you in doing that, to help arrange for rides, snacks, things that will help people feel welcome and comfortable doing something that can be a little challenging. Okay, when Hali has created an awesome Google site that is giving all of us access to every single budget committee meeting that is currently available at the city council, and the county council is to come. Oh, I see Jody's hand, so I'm going to pause. Yes, ma'am.
Just giving you a time check.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to transition us to this fun little additional piece. Oh my God, yes, because we have somebody who has to go, pardon me. Sorry, I forgot about that important detail, Rachel. So we're going to come back to the, you know, some of the how to do it. But what we have done this morning, and I see almost all of them on here, thank you so much, is we have 4 fabulous service providers who are going to share with you their experiences of providing public comment. Now, remember, these are examples. You will personalize, but listen, learn, take a few notes about what resonates with you. Okay, we have only 3 people. Thank you so much. So we're going to start with Rachel Scott, who joins us from the REACH team. Then I think the next person is Tamara Bauman from Solid Ground, and then Trisha Matthew with CCS and the HEN program. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us. We've asked them to do a kind of funky and informative thing, which is to share their tips with you in the format of a 2-minute public comment. Not an easy thing to do, but a good illustration of how much you can say in just 2 minutes. And then we're going to have a little bit of Q&A and discussion with them. So with that, Rachel, I want to invite you to unmute yourself. And thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry. Per my usual job description, I'm in my car driving around, so I had to pull over. Okay, let me pull up my thing. Okay. And I've narrowed this down to hopefully just 2 minutes, because that's usually what you get at City Council. Okay. Hi, my name is Rachel Scott. I am a homeless outreach service coordinator with the REACH program, a resident of District 6, and I hold master's degrees in social work and public health. I provide these credentials to show how my identity and experiences inform my opinions and the requests I'm about to make to City Council. I'm setting up why I hope you will consider my testimony. So in this example, I'm asking the council to vote no on a proposed policy that I think will be harmful to the community I serve, and I will state that opinion outright. I'll provide specific evidence that demonstrates why this proposed policy is not a good solution. For example, if I'm urging the council to vote no on criminalizing misdemeanor drug possession for the community I serve, I might say that there's no evidence to support that incarceration leads to better outcomes for people with substance use disorders and are unstably housed. I could say, in fact, public health research shows that overdose is the leading cause of death among people recently released from prisons and jails. Then I would put in a personal anecdote to show my proximity to the issue, such as that I've personally lost multiple clients to overdose after their release from jail. Next, I would provide statements that show how and why this policy will be wasteful, will fail, or is harmful. Remember that City Council members are not experts on these matters, and they sometimes have very little concrete knowledge about these topics, and they rely on us for the information. I might educate the council that the criminal justice system and jail provides no detox support for people with substance use disorders, that getting access to medication like Suboxone, which can help treat opiate addiction, is almost impossible in a jail setting. I might find common ground with the council and note that we all want the same outcomes, to reduce the devastating outcomes of the fentanyl crisis. But I will illuminate to the council how the proposed policy is misguided and encourage them to listen to people with expertise on these matters who can truly help inform concrete solutions based on evidence. Those experts might be people with lived experience. They may be the health or social service workers who navigate these issues every day. Then I will conclude by restating my ask to vote no or yes on the proposed policy and thank the council for their consideration. Thank you.
Wow, Rachel, thank you so much. I have had the privilege of standing next to Rachel when she's offered public comment, and I can tell you it's extraordinarily powerful, and that was an extremely beautiful and useful overview. Thank you so much. Next, we're going to turn to another powerful and experienced service provider, Tamara Bauman, with Solid Ground. Thanks, Tamara.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I am going to just read what I have written. Hello, my name is Tamara Bauman, and I'm a local housing advocate and Seattle-King County Continuum of Care board member. I also co-chair our COC's System Performance Committee, but most importantly, I have lived experience of homelessness, and I am also a survivor of domestic violence. I'm here today to urge the council to align its budgetary planning efforts with the values and priorities of the communities each of you represent. We know that public budgets are moral documents that reflect a government's commitment or lack thereof to the people within its jurisdiction. As a concerned community member and housing advocate working directly with folks experiencing homelessness, I implore you to center the needs of our most vulnerable community members in the final budget by 1, investing in projects and activities that are led by those with lived experience of homelessness. 2, divesting from activities that further harm and do nothing to solve homelessness, such as sweeps. 3, reallocating funds from conducting costly sweeps and criminalizing folks experiencing homelessness to supporting wage equity for frontline service providers. And for public commenters, I encourage you to infuse your message with passion and to stand firmly in your truth. Remember, these folks work for you and need to hear from you in order to push the movement for housing justice forward. Thank you. So mine was very short and sweet. And I could have gone on, but yeah, I started with that.
That was tremendous. Thank you so much. What an artful way to interweave guidance and passion. Thank you so much, Tamara. Please stick around. I know that Rachel had to leave and Antonio is not able to join us today, Antonio from Youth Care, but that we have one more person who's going to share her experience with us, and that's the lovely Trisha Matthew with CCS's HEN program. Welcome, Trisha, and thank you.
Uh, Thank you. Okay. Hello, my name is Tricia Matthew, and I am the director of the King County Housing and Essential Needs Program. Thank you for your willingness to learn how to best advocate for your program with elected officials. When giving good public testimony, I have 5 tips to share. First, remember that the legislators and other people testifying are all regular people just like you, and what they have to say is important. They want and need to hear from you in order to help them do their jobs and make the right decisions, and that should hopefully help with any nervousness. Second, write out a script, practice it, and time yourself. 1 to 2 minutes goes by very quickly, and you can adjust your speed or edit your comments accordingly. If you have a lot to say, make sure you have both a 1 and a 2-minute version.
I think we lost Trisha's audio. Trisha, if you can hear
Tricia,
us, I think we
somehow we
lost
just lost your audio. So we're going to ask you to see if you can fix that, and because we don't want to miss a word. All of a sudden, you just went on mute. There you go. I think you're off.
Okay. Thanks.
Right.
It said the host muted me. Okay.
Oh no. Unfortunately, we assure you.
Okay.
Sorry, please rewind about
Okay.
20 seconds.
Okay, if you're creating a panel, aim for diversity in roles and experiences. In my last testimony, our team consisted of a current HIN staff member who was a previous client, a current case manager who could speak to the daily need and also the gratefulness of our participants, a program manager who shared details about our overall program, and then I shared the big picture of what would happen if we lost funding. Fourth, use data to define the need. Some lawmakers respond best to stories and some respond to data, so try to have both. For my program, for example, I might say something like this if I was seeking to avoid a cut in funding. 9,619 people are eligible for and in need of HEN rental assistance in King County today. Current funding levels only support paying rent for about 2,000 of them, or 21%. We need 3 to 4 times the funding to support the need, not a cut. A cut in funding would directly result in current clients losing housing stability and falling into homelessness, making the situation even more dire. And then fifth, if you have time and aren't getting cut off, don't forget to say thank you. Thank you very much for your time and consideration today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We miss Antonio, but boy, we just have 3 tremendous examples. Thank you. We're going to, of course, ask each of you to share what you read from. You're all just extraordinary examples. And let me just invite questions in the, you're getting all sorts of praise in the comments, but if anybody has any questions or a tip of your own that you might want to share with others, please feel free to do that. As I said, Rachel had to drop off, but Tamara and Tricia, do you have other thoughts that you didn't fit into your marvelously crafted 2-minute statements that you might want to offer up?
I think for me, one of the most important things is like the vocal intonation. So when I'm giving public testimony, if I'm not in the room, or even if I am in the room, I want the people who are the council members to hear like how much the issue impacts me personally. And because I'm also a direct service provider, I have lived experience and I serve on a board that like oversees the homeless response system. I want them to know that I am speaking with full-on credibility, and I know that they work for me because I put them there, and I can take them out like collectively, not me personally, but so I know the role that they play, and it's incumbent upon us to push and advocate and like make them uncomfortable sometimes, because I personally don't know any other way to force people who have positional power to respond to the needs of their community if they're not actively engaging. And as we all know, they're not experts on the work that we do. So it's incumbent upon us to teach them and to make sure that their policy making and that their budgetary investments are in alignment with the needs of the people that are their constituents. So
Yes.
I tend to get really animated. I get really like, I use my hands, I get really, but that's how I think I am a effective messenger sometimes, is
Mhm.
because I'm really vocal and I'm not afraid to say things that might make somebody uncomfortable in a position
Mhm.
of power. So I think, like, get your brave face on.
Yes. Thank you so much. And of course, what you're also demonstrating and speaking to is you do you, right? So use of emotion can be very strategic and very tactical. And also, I forget who said this, but I think maybe Trisha said, like, you also want to connect with the people you're speaking to, and that could look different ways. Sometimes there's a particular lawmaker whom we are focusing our comments on, and that lawmaker might be someone who really needs a somewhat different emotional approach. So we want to recognize that that this is there is nuance here. Everything you're saying is true, and different situations might call for different approaches. So we strive to give you all information and context to help you. I see Karina O'Malley has a hand, and then we're going to move to another important piece of this, but clearly so much more to come. Karina, please go ahead.
I just wanted to,
oh,
yeah, thank you, to ask a question, because there were two times when two things that sort of trip me up when I'm giving public testimony. One is I can be a little intimidated when I hear other speakers address the council in a very formal way. And I wonder, oh, like, I don't know how to do that. Like, Madam Council Member and the mayor and blah, blah, blah. And so I just skip that. But like the first few times I'm like, oh, am I going to be like deducted points or something because I don't have the formal introduction, right? Because a lot of other speakers. So I just wanted to bring that up and ask the more experienced speakers how they felt about that. And then the other thing that really I want to share with other folks is when I spoke at the state legislature, they actually did cut me off for attributing intent to a lawmaker. They're like, we don't do that here, right? When I was like, well, you put forward this bill to hurt people, and they're like, oh, we don't do that here. And I'm like, okay. So just that there are actually etiquette things that are important in terms of when you crafting your message.
Yeah. Thank you, Karina. Those are two really interesting and related topics. I think I'm going to invite a brief response from either of the folks who are still here with us. If you have something you want to respond, maybe just unmute yourself so I can see if you want to. I will offer my thoughts, which is, on the first point, Karina, informality is okay. It is structured and it is ritualistic in some ways, but short of using abusive language, like, you don't have to be super formal. In fact, I think sometimes doing something like acknowledging that you're nervous or it's the first time you've given public comment actually really kind of wakes up the people who are listening to you. And being your authentic self is always useful. But that said, to your second point, there are some guidelines, and we don't want people to be taken by surprise. So that's why we're offering to help people if you've not done this before. I also want to just mention a couple of other short things before we hand things over to Hali. And obviously, this is just an intro session. There's more to come, right? Lots to discuss. The fact is that public comment in the era since COVID is also different. We used to be in the room physically together in solidarity. And so we could sort of like chat in the hallway, or people could practice, or you could have a friend listen to you and you could say, I don't know if I should say this or not. We'll still be doing some of that, but it's a little harder, especially if people are giving comment remotely. So we will help you prep. A couple of just additional thoughts that are going to be in the 5 tips for crafting your statement document that we're going to share with you. You probably cannot speak on behalf of your agency if you're not authorized to do so. You can say where you work. You can say what you do and describe your work. You can say you're a member of the Coalition on Homelessness, even though you're not speaking on behalf of the coalition. You can say you're a member of a union if you're a member of a union. You can say what district you're in. You can also say, I'm here with people who stay in this program, and they've asked me to share some thoughts that they want you to know. So there are a lot of ways to kind of present yourself, even if you don't sit on a board or have a degree or a title. I want to move us along so Hali can share the tool of the different times and ways to speak up. And then we will be following up with all of you and embedding into that website a, 5 easy pieces basically for crafting your email, phone call, or public comment.
And I just wanted to, just for our team and our agenda, we have till 10:05 for this section. Okay, so we're doing better on time. So I just didn't want to cut short any good information because this is really helpful.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, then in that case, good, because I was rushing a little bit while we any other thoughts or questions or things that might, especially if you've never done this before. This is an ask us anything. This is a no question is a dumb question. And also think about, we'd love to also hear, do you have ideas? You could hold, a little mini comment in your program, whatever the nature of the program is, and invite people to just fill out a template postcard and say that even if they don't have time to sit around on the phone, which is a piece of this, that you're going to help them email their comments in. Or sit around on the phone if you've got a setup that allows people to do that. There's really no end to the creativity that you can deploy. I'm going to put a question in the chat and then let Hali go, and maybe we'll just continue with some Q&A after Hali shares with you this tool that and some additional information about the nuts and bolts.
Thanks, Allison. So that was fantastic information that everyone just shared. I want to thank Tamara, Tricia, and Rachel. That was really, really informative. Really appreciate you sharing your experiences and your advice with the group, especially, and I'll share the poll results from earlier, for the just over half of us who have not yet given public comment. That is just especially helpful information. So what we're going to do now is we're going to walk through some of the more like technical nuts and bolts of like, where are we in the budget process? How do I find out who my council member is? And all of that sort of more technical information. And Tim, if you could please drop all of my many links in the chat. We're gonna reference those one by one as we go along. But these are just sort of helpful to keep in your back pocket as you get ready to give public comment. So I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, perfect. And Jody, does that look okay to you?
Looks great.
Thank you very much. Okay, so where are we in the budget process? As Allison mentioned earlier, the budget goes through a process of first being proposed by the executive branch of government. So in King County, that's the King County Executive Dow Constantine. In the city of Seattle, that's Mayor Bruce Harrell. And then if you live in a city that has what's called a council manager form of government, it's proposed by the city manager. So if you live in Burien, for example, your budget will come first from the city manager and then go to the council. So we are at this sort of, we're just, anticipating that the mayor's budget and the King County executive's budget will be coming out at the end of this month. And then we will really dive into doing some advocacy at the county council and the city council level. So the budget will first go through, in both the city council and the county council, it will go through what's called a budget committee before going to the full council. And that's important to know just so you can know what the meeting is called that you should look up before you plan to attend public comment. And we'll have a tool that is that Google site that Tim has shared in the chat. And that includes all of the dates that we know about so far for budget meetings that you can attend and that you can advocate at. So you don't need to memorize any of this. We're trying to make that site sort of a one-stop shop of how does this work and how can I get involved? And of course, if you have any questions about how to do budget advocacy in your city, or like what form of government does my city have if you don't live in the city of Seattle, or how do I get in contact with my county council members if I live outside of King County, which I know many folks who work in direct service cannot afford to live in this county, even if you may work in this county. So please don't hesitate to email, call, or text me. I am more than happy to help you sort of navigate these systems. They can be a little complicated and hard to find. So now we're going to talk about how to find out who represents you. As Tamara mentioned really eloquently, especially when we're giving public comment, it is so important to know what district you live in and who represents you so that you can remind your council members that indeed they work for you. So if you live in King County, and this should be in the links that Tim has posted as well, you can go to this website, and you can also find it by just Googling King County Find My District, as you could with, if you live in Snohomish County or elsewhere, you can Google Snohomish County Find My District and you'll find a tool to do so. And you can pop in your address and it will direct you to find out what your council district is and also who your council member is. So I put in the address of our office. If I lived here, my council member would be Joe McDermott, and I've got his email, I've got his website. If I go to his website, I can find out who his staff members are, which is really important to know if you're going to be emailing him. And so that's a really fantastic thing to be able to include when you go to public comment, to say, you know, hello, my name is Hali, I'm a resident of this district, and I work in this district. And that's another important thing. If you work in King County or you work in Seattle, but you don't live there, definitely mention, you know, I work in District 8 or I work in District 6. Even if you don't live there, you can still do advocacy. And then if you live in Seattle, it's a similar process. You pop in your address and you'll see who you are represented by. You can go to their website, you can email them, you can call them. And also for Seattle, it will tell you if your district is changing in 2024. So that's just something that's helpful to keep in mind. And then finally, we'll talk about the many different ways you can speak up. So Allison already mentioned there are so many different ways that you can speak up during the budget process, as well as any other policy issue that you want to weigh in on. And so we'll talk about public comment for just a moment, because that's what we've been talking about and focusing on so far. So there are two ways to give vocal public comment. You can do it in person. So if you want to give in-person public comment, you go to the meeting in person early, and there will be a piece of paper at the front of the room, and you can go and you can sign up your name on that piece of paper, and they will call you when it's your turn. For remote public comment, Seattle and King County have different processes. If you follow that link that is a technical guide to public comment, you can learn all about the differences between Seattle public comment and how it works, and King County public comment and how it works. So just another good resource for you to have in your pocket. One thing that's important to note, if you're advocating in Seattle, you need to log on 2 hours ahead of time to their website and sign yourself up for remote public comment. King County is a little simpler. You just join the Zoom meeting and they'll call on you when it's your turn. And some general tips for giving public comment, and our fabulous presenters noted many of these earlier, so I'll just sort of reiterate them. It's really helpful to write down your comment in advance, especially for those of us that are new to giving public comment. It can be a little nerve-wracking, right? Being in front of all your council members and having to speak. So having it written down is really helpful, as well as practicing it and making sure that you can stick to the time limit. So sometimes that's 1 minute, sometimes that's 2 minutes, and they might change that time limit during the meeting. So it's good to be prepared to give either a 1 minute or a 2 minute public comment. And also, we will host some drop-in sessions on Teams before opportunities to give public comment. If you want to come and talk through your public comment with us, if you need to workshop it, if you're just feeling nervous and want some support, we will do everything in our power to support you in speaking up. And again, please don't hesitate to email us or give us a call if there's any way we can help you in speaking up. So that's, in-person and remote public comment. You can also provide written public comment for a specific meeting, and you need to do that before a certain time in the morning of that meeting day. You can find all that information in that technical guide to public comment as well. You can also email your council members. It is really, really important, as Allison said earlier, to customize those emails. So we'll be sending out a lot of action alerts that you can respond to. They usually come with email templates, and please do customize those. It is really important to be able to tell your story and have that really make an impact on council members. You can also take selfies with signs and post them on social media and tag your council members. There are so many other ways to speak up, and this is just a few of them. So, and as Allison mentioned earlier, like the best way to speak up is the best way that works for you. There's none of these that's better than the others. It is really, whatever you will do and whatever works for you. So finally, I'll invite you to check out the link that Tim posted in the chat that goes to our Google site. Like I mentioned, we're hoping for this to be sort of a one-stop shop where you can get informed about what's going on about the budget. And perhaps most importantly, you can sign up to get involved. So you'll see there's this sign up poll on the right-hand side. We've got it populated with all the dates that we know about so far for the city of Seattle. We don't know about the King County budget hearing dates yet, but we'll update it when we get them. And it asks about, how can we support you? And so this is a really important tool for us to help support you in giving public comment, and also to make sure that our message gets heard at every opportunity, because that is really how we will make progress and make sure that we get a budget that works for homeless service providers. So I'm going to go ahead and end this share, and I will launch a final poll that will ask you what type of advocacy you will use during this budget season. And as folks are filling that out, I will just pause and see if there's any questions. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. I see folks are still filling out that poll. And I think, Jody, if there are no questions for us right now. Allison, do you want to say any final words and then we can move on to our next item?
Thank you so much, Hali. We packed a lot in. So if you're feeling like, whoa, that was a lot, you're right. It's okay. This isn't the last opportunity that you will have to absorb this information. And we, especially Hali, are here for you. This is what we do. We try to craft unified, powerful, effective messages and engage you and all the folks you work with to deliver them consistently and powerfully. And you know what? That is part of why the Coalition on Homelessness is at a lot of other tables. I think the last thing I want to mention is the best time to speak up right now is it's going to be starting next week and through October. We will still be coming to you in November, but things start to gel and we need to hit our points early, often, and clearly in the next few weeks. So please stay tuned. Please make sure that you open action alert messages from us, and please share the love. Thanks.
Awesome. That was amazing. Absolutely amazing. And if you're sitting on a thought on the edge of unmuting or in the midst of typing, keep going. You know, we'll follow back up here if we have time, or after the fact for sure. As Allison said, we are here to support you in speaking up. So in a very different vein of advocacy, we have some more opportunities for you all. We have a lot of announcements just with events that are happening with the coalition kind of between now and the end of the year, and we just want to make sure you can get them all on your calendar. So before I turn it over to Tim to share a little bit about those opportunities and registration links, the Seattle Housing Levy, huge investment, $970 million over the next 7 years, so 2024 to 2030. That gets invested into affordable housing, a critical resource. It is on the November 7th general election ballot. Allison just dropped the link for the campaign there for you. It last passed in 2016. Overwhelming approval rate of 70%, because as Allison has so eloquently stated in before, Seattleites and King County residents vote for what works, and housing works. Investing in good services works. So we are going to be talking about this a lot more, but this is something that we at the coalition have endorsed proudly. We are going to do our share to help make sure this passes and that people have an understanding of what this is. So on that note, we are going to be hosting a phone banking event on October 17th. That is a Tuesday. It will be in the evening. We are going to invite you all to join us in our efforts to call Seattle registered voters to share why we think they should vote yes on this measure. So save that date. We're going to have more details to come. This is an evolving event that we are in the midst of planning, but we have that ready for you to save the date and join us for phone and text banking. If you have never done that, we can help answer any questions, but it can be a fun way to advocate if speaking up at a public comment isn't your thing, and more of a one-on-one talking with folks. Allison, I'm going to hand it to you, but I'm going to make us be quick because we have a lot of announcements, so we'll turn it over to Tim.
Thank you so much. I just want to make sure that folks know that October 17th date is one opportunity. There are lots of dates when folks can participate in phone and text banking. Again, find the one that works for you. There are going to be opportunities in different places, including in Renton, to call Seattle voters and text them. So you're not limited to just that date, but we are planning awesome things for that date. And it is going to be an essential workers phone bank date. I'll be honest with you, we're going to try to get the mayor there. So please save the date. And we know it's right before one of the big city budget hearing dates, October 18th, so we can divide and conquer. Thanks.
Well done. Take it away, Tim.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Wow, this really is the policy advocacy edition of our membership meetings. We have talked a lot today about the importance of advocating to our lawmakers, our policymakers, to make decisions that invest in our communities. Jody already alluded to this just now, and Allison, that individual voters make up our electorate. It is so important that we have people voting so that we can accomplish things that are ballot measures. In that spirit, we are doing get out the vote work over the next 6 weeks or so, up until the November 7th general election. A bunch of us, including one of our stellar long-term volunteers, Barbara, who is on this call, hi Barbara, are going out into communities to share information about voter eligibility. It's really important that everyone knows their voting rights, including people who have had past felony convictions, people who are unhoused and don't have a permanent residential address. There are a lot of forces that make a person think that either they can't vote or their vote doesn't count, but we are here to tell them that it can, and it does. In preparation for those events, which we'll share a little bit more over time, we are hosting 2 community trainings. These are fantastic spaces to share information with your clients about their voting rights, or your community members, or anybody that you want to vote, which is everyone in your life, of course. They are going to be held in Seattle and South King County. The Seattle location is going to be on Saturday the 30th. It's the Saturday after a big event of ours coming up this weekend, lawn bowling. So a week from that, in the morning to the early afternoon in the University District, we have a South King County training in Boulevard Park at the King County Library Boulevard Park location. On Tuesday, the 3rd of October, 5 to 7:30 in the evening. Anybody that you know that wants to learn about voting rights and how to register a person or volunteer with the coalition, we're definitely looking for people to volunteer. Please send them, please share these registration links. It is in person. We're so excited to see you. Please come. All right. Moving on from those opportunities, we have a bunch of more typical work that we're doing throughout the fall and winter. We are very excited for next month's general membership meeting. We're definitely going to be talking about policy advocacy and public comment still, but it's also going to be a space where we're going to highlight a program that is not known to everybody that we really want to share. Disability Empowerment Center. Sometimes Brian Tacovelli is on this call. I'm not sure if he's here today, but he is a stellar peer independent living specialist that works with folks who have disabilities in the greater Seattle area as a part of Disability Empowerment Center. They're an awesome program that provides a lot of independent living resources to folks with disabilities. And we think that it's very applicable to a lot of potentially your clients who may have disabilities, and we are excited to share that resource. That is Thursday, October 19th. Link is in the chat, or will be shortly. Yes, it is. Awesome. Moving on from there, we have we hold these every month except for just August. We have another general membership meeting coming up in November. That is a meeting that we're going to share a spotlight on King County Vets program. I would consider it a best kept secret. A lot of people I've talked to that are service providers have not heard about this. It is a very inclusive program that can provide benefits for essentially folks who have served in the military for one day in the US and their household members. It provides benefits that are eligible to those who can't access VA benefits. They provide cash assistance in limited amounts. It's very cool. We're really excited to share information from one of our board members who's associated with the program, Megan Stanley. So we're definitely looking forward to our November meeting as well. And then, of course, coming towards the end of the year and coming up against 2024, we have our legislative preview. Every December, we hold a 2-hour, very special legislative preview. We often have elected representatives and senators at the, from our state legislature joining us to share insights about the past year, predictions about the following legislative session. It's going to be a really good time, and we're already looking forward to it. So thank you for coming to that. Note that usually our general membership meetings are held on the third Thursday to accommodate for everybody's end of year holidays. Some of us, won't be here also. We are going to hold that on the second Thursday on Thursday, December 14th. Please come. We look forward to seeing you. Okay, into more provider resources. We have a couple very exciting trainings coming up. Many people probably already know that we hold our Public Benefits Are Key trainings. These are wonderful resource events where we partner with subject matter experts from programs like Solid Grounds Benefits Legal Assistance, Benefits Legal Center, which focuses on SSI and SSDI applications. Basically, people who are making very complicated, systemic, like arcane information accessible to you so that your clients who are experiencing a number of hardships get their public benefits so that they can achieve their goals. So we have a brand new training coming up on October 11th at 3 p.m. This is a very special training focusing on how to pragmatically access long-term care. We held a training earlier in the year talking about the rights to folks with long-term care, folks who may not have easy access due to behavioral challenges or substance use. Even smoking cigarettes can make a person hard to place in a long-term care facility. This is a training that talks about how to overcome those barriers, how to practically access those entry points. And we're going to have a number of people from City of Seattle, Washington DSHS, as well as some client advocates on the call. It's going to be a really good time. We're very excited to host this information, and we hope to see you there. Finally, one event that is associated with Public Benefits Are Key, but is not a training. It is a resource-rich conversation that we call a Public Benefits Shop Talk. This is our third shop talk in which we are inviting service providers or program associates to basically share experiences that they've had with their clients, share resources, talk about challenges, and basically it's just a way to crowdsource information and allow networking so that service providers can do their work a little more easily. All of these events, all of our shop talks are open to any discussion that people want to bring. However, we are going to have some subject matter experts and advocates join us to talk about access to gender-affirming care, particularly for low-resourced individuals and folks who may be on Medicaid, who are not having an easy time getting the care that they need. So this is going to be a really good space to share resources that you know of, to hear resources from our experts, and to talk about anything else you'd like. The link is in the chat. It's going to be on Thursday, October 26th in the afternoon. That is all of our community updates. We have a lot going on. We really appreciate you hanging in there and joining us for some of this very special programming. I think we're slightly ahead of time, barely. So I would like to turn it over either back to Jody or to our very special guest today, Alexis Mercedes Ring.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, amazing. We are hitting it out of the park here today, folks. I love it. So we're going to shift gears a little bit here, folks, and we have invited Alexis Mercedes Rink to join us today. Hi, Alexis. Super cute bangs. Whoa, loving it. Some of you may have already heard that Alexis is leaving her position as the director of the Subregional Planning and Equitable Engagement role at the King County Regional Homelessness Authority. And it is a practice and an honor and a tradition at the coalition to invite folks into this space to publicly thank them for the amazing and hard work that they have done in service to the folks we work with, in the support of the work we do, and how we show up together. So I know, Abby, I just saw you come on. I saw Mallory earlier, so I'm glad you all are here. Thanks for being here. So for those that aren't as familiar with Alexis and her team and their work, they were incredibly instrumental around the 5-year plan. They created the regional services database, and this was really under Alexis's steadfast leadership. Those are kind of the like on paper checkbox, huge amounts of work that they did. But I think what I would really like to highlight is the role that Alexis played, and then in terms of bringing in her team, and then the engagement with which Alexis and her team have shown up in this community is really, I think, extending, I'm searching for the right word here. I think really extending visibility into the work of the RHA, and how honoring the expertise of the providers, the folks that are accessing services, the folks we work with, administrators, the expertise, and how pulling that into the work that they did. Thank you, Allison. True partnership, honesty, transparency, big relationship building, which was not a small undertaking, given that the RHA was a huge new entity that had a lot to do. And Alexis, and then by subsequent, her team really showed up as the face as community partnerships, and engaged with us in, I think, pretty amazing ways to make sure that our expertise, our voices, our concerns, our priorities were being reflected in the work that they did through that 5-year plan, as they engaged with other teams at the RHA, and being a presence in our community meetings. So just want to take a moment to thank Alexis. Alexis, we want to give you a little moment just to say whatever you want to or not, and I invite anybody else to come off mute, throw in your emojis, anything you want to say in the chat. But Alexis, if you would like to take the floor, please take the floor.
Oh my gosh. Okay. My goal is not to cry. It has been a tremendous honor to work with this community. There is so much richness and wealth and knowledge within this community, from folks that have been doing the work on all sides of it, whether it be in the legislative side, the direct service, advocacy, all of it. And so it's an honor to truly shepherd it. It's worth the late nights and the little sleep, because it has been a gift to be able to learn from the brilliant people in this community. And so I want to thank you all for every bit of attention you've given me, even if it's been 5 minutes reading or 5 seconds reading an email. I thank you for being a part of trying to work together. Just thank you. And thank you for this time.
Thank you. And I'm going to read one thing in the chat, Allison, then I'll hand it to you. Joy, and you are getting lots of hearts and love here, but it says, Alexis has showed up in true partnership throughout her time with RHA. Alexis, I am so grateful for you and all that you have done in your role. Your knowledge, dedication, care, problem solving, and collaboration have made a real impact in the community. So grateful to have gotten to work with you, and so glad you will be taking a positive step in a new direction. And that's Joy Scott, who former colleague at the City of Auburn. So Allison, take it away.
Well, I think you have said things beautifully. Alexis and Jody expressed our appreciation and thanks. I want to acknowledge Abby and Mallory and other good folks are going to continue doing this work, and we're glad to continue to work with them. I want to acknowledge two things, right? Like, we all heard startling news on Monday or Tuesday about the very rapid wind down, closure, sunset, whatever word you want to use, of the Partnership for Zero program. Another example, I will say, of the fact that how things are implemented is an incredibly important piece of what happens. And we're all very familiar with difficult decisions, but we're also familiar, unfortunately, with shitty process. And it's really hard to, all of us have worked in places where processes have fallen short. I just want to, acknowledge personally and on behalf of the organization that even when processes are not good, there is incredible value to having someone like you, Alexis, who is forthright, who is not issuing contentless statements, and who is doing your best to answer questions and be, somebody who keeps their eyes on the prize of the work. And also to recognize that for a lot of people, there are deeply personal reasons why we are in this work. And sometimes you have to push those reasons aside to get through a day. And sometimes you have to hold on to those reasons really tightly to get through a day. And, we know you're not leaving the work. Whatever it is that you wind up doing, you will, of course, continue to be part of our community here. And, I think it's useful for us to thank people publicly. We don't always get to do it. In this case, the timing worked, and we're really glad about it. But it's useful in part because fundamentally what we have, and we saw this through the pandemic, but we see it in the nature of this work. What we have is we have our own integrity and the way in which we do what we are called on to do. So we really strive, as Jody said, to thank people publicly as part of our culture, and in recognition that sometimes people need to step away for a while, and that's okay. So thank you so much. And that goes for so many other people, both those who are here today and those who aren't. And, we're really, we're only as strong as the whole gets to continue to be, and passing things off to others is a symbol of strength.
Thank you, Allison. And as a final note, I see my colleagues Abby and Mallory who are here today, who are incredible and move with such integrity. And if you haven't gotten a chance to know them, now's your chance. I know they're going to carry forward the work beautifully. And I just want to celebrate them because we are a team and we do things together. And so my success in this role is because of them. So I just really needed to say that and make sure you all know that you still have trusted folks at KCRHA if I've been your main point of contact. So thank you again.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you. I know we have a little bit of time for any community announcements, things that folks might need to share with the rest of the community. Let us know what you need. As always, we're going to try to either provide it or help you get it. And we're really happy to see everybody here and look forward to seeing you at some of the tremendous number of activities that are coming up in the next weeks and months.